Today is February 8th, it is 7:03, and I'd like to call the Borough of Beach Haven meeting to order. And we start with the flag salute, which is led by me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, let's continue our Eastern Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin boards in the entrance hall of the Beach Haven Municipal Building and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times, the Asbury Park Press, and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Taxis.
Here.
Mr. Keeler.
Here.
Mr. Maskell.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mayor Davis. Here. And now, could we have the manager's report?
Sure, Mayor. I'll begin with our treasurer's report for the month of January 2016. Cash receipts in the current fund for the period January 1st to January 31st were $2,287,484.97. The cash balance in the current fund as of this period totaled $10,504,943.46. The cash balance in the water utility as of January 31st, 2016 was $2,123,566.34, submitted by our treasurer, Shari Bowler. Moving on to a few department reports. We have on for approval in our agenda later this evening. We are executing a task order to extend the contract of Lewis Berger Group. This is the consultant hired in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. We are extending their contract for an additional year for additional work. Hard to believe that we are into year four of the aftermath of the storm. I remember when they first started talking about it, one of the experienced FEMA people had mentioned at the time that it takes a good 5 years to run through this thing. It didn't seem possible at the time. It seems possible now. To date, we've received a little over $1.8 million in reimbursements for storm-related damages from FEMA. We've also received from our insurance proceeds an additional $1,333,000. However, there's still quite a few projects that have not been closed out. In fact, we have probably about 14 projects right now that are on the cusp of being closed out. The money standing still, hopefully we will be receiving from these projects are somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.7 million. This includes the direct administrative costs, which is the amount of money that we pay to the Lewis Berger Group for their assistance in this endeavor. While we're speaking of storms, we all experienced Winter Storm Jonas recently. That did cause some additional expenses here in Beach Haven. We had to truck in approximately 100 dump loads of sand to reinforce the area in the southern end of town. Those 100 dump loads account for about 2,500 tons of sand. You'd be surprised how little one dump load of sand goes. We do have the good news is that we have a commitment from the New Jersey DEP Coastal Engineering Department up in Toms River to cover the $35,000 cost for this sand. Unfortunately, the tides have already eroded away some of the sand from last night. We're wondering what goes on with the coming storm. We were very fortunate to have the first half of our winter was relatively mild. February is starting to appear not to be so we're a little concerned about what might be going, but we'll keep at it and try to keep the duties taken care of. Again, if we had been fortunate to get the beach replenishment as was promised back in the early fall, we probably wouldn't be talking about that now. Moving on, just a reminder at that time of the year, the fireman dinner at Turkey Dinner is coming Saturday, February 13th. Also, municipal offices will be closed this Friday, February 12th, to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and the following Monday, the President's Day. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Now we have approval of the minutes without formal reading.
We have an organization meeting of January 6, 2016, an executive session January 6, 2016, the CDBG meeting January 9, 13, 2016, and a regular meeting of January 19, 2016.
Has everybody read the minutes?
Yes, having no comments.
There are a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes as listed.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Three.
The first ordinance is 2016-2C.
Ordinance 2016-2C, an ordinance establishing Chapter 152, property maintenance of vacant and abandoned property of the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, adopting and implementing the provisions of the Abandoned Property Rehabilitation Act, NJSA 55:1978 et sec, final reading.
This is the final reading, so this gives the audience a chance to come up and make comments if they care to. If anybody wants to make a comment, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment on the abandoned property? Seeing that nobody wants to make a comment, I will close the floor and we can vote.
Motion to approve, second to C.
Mr. Cactus?
Yes.
Mr. Peeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2016-3C, an ordinance amending an ordinance entitled Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, as the same in Chapter 204 deals with water charges. First reading.
This is the first reading, and so we can call for the vote for this.
Motion to approve 4C.
3C.
3C, sorry.
Roger, in a second. Mr. Cactus?
Yes.
Mr. Peeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2016-4C, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 212, 20J, tents for temporary structures of the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to clarify the limitations on the number of tented events applies only to residential districts, RA, RNA, RSA, RB, RC, and RCB. First reading.
Again, this is the first reading, so we can vote. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Cactus?
Yes.
Mr. Peeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. Resolution 37, storage appointments. Resolution 38, memorializing the clerical contract, Local 35 through 2018. Resolution 39, memorializing the Public Works contract, Local 97 through 2018. Resolution 40, reappointing emergency management officers. Resolution 41, authorizing application for the 2016 Community Development Block Grant Program. Resolution 42, authorizing to advertise for bids for ice cream vendors. Resolution 43, permitting sidewalk sales. Resolution 44, authorizing submission of raffle license applications for the Long Beach Island Historical Association. Resolution 45, amending the contract for professional services with Owen Little and Associates for the provision of zoning officer. Resolution 46, appointing Class 1 and Class 2 special law enforcement officers for 2016. Resolution 47, canceling water charges. Resolution 48, updating the Emergency Management Council. Resolution 49, contracting with eConsult Solutions as expert witness trial phase in the declaratory judgment action. Resolution 50, returning remaining escrow. Resolution 51, executing shared service agreement with the County of Ocean for animal facility services. Resolution 52, executing the 2016 Schedule C shared service agreement with the County of Ocean. Resolution 53, authorizing application of a tax credit due to a state tax appeal. Resolution 54, executing a task order with Lewis Berger Group for public assistance services. Resolution 55, returning piling bonds. And finally, Resolution 56, emergency temporary appropriations.
Are there any resolutions that a member of council would like to take off of the agenda for discussion?
No, I'm good.
In that case, none. In that case, can I call for a motion to approve?
Motion to approve resolution for the veterans. Second.
Mr. Taxis?
Yes.
Mr. Peeler?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $3,770,362.84.
Has everybody read the bills, and if they have, is there a motion to approve? Are there any questions?
I have a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Taxis?
Yes.
Mr. Peeler?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
We're all done with public business.
Okay.
Switch spots.
We're going to do some switching of chairs.
We'll take like a 2-minute recess.
That's good. A
Okay.
2-minute recess would be fine.
Do I have a motion to recess for 2 minutes?
Motion to recess for 2.
Second. Okay, 2-minute recess. Okay, today is February 8th, and it is now, I don't even know what time, 7:20, and I'm reconvening the Beach Haven Borough's regular meeting. Okay, so at this point, we have a public hearing, and our lawyer, Mr. Padula, will carry on from here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're at the point of the agenda for a public hearing on the place-to-place transfer application for license, liquor license establishment, license number 1503-33-004-004. This is the Catches application to expand the licensed premises across the street to the business known as the Boathouse. The procedure for the hearing will be the applicant will get a chance to make a presentation to the governing body. Then there have been written objectors, so we will hear from the objectors and possibly from the police department, and then we will give the applicant a chance to respond to that. Is there any questions? And the governing body may or may not take action tonight. Any questions from the applicant? All right, Mr. Gilmore, proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is George Gilmore, Gilmore Monahan. I'm here on behalf of Bill Burris, who is the ultimate purchaser of both the Catch and the Boathouse. Jack Vasello is here. He is the attorney who filed the application for the expansion of the liquor license. However, I think both of us need to be here because I can answer questions that the governing body or the audience may have that Mr. Vasello cannot because he represents the current owner. And I want to make it perfectly clear that the law allows the proposed expansion of the license as proposed in Mr. Vasello's application. As you know, the Catch has the current liquor license. The Boathouse does not have a liquor license. The Boathouse, however, does have, I think it had 22 weddings last year where it received a special one-day license to allow liquor to be served at that point in time. During the other days and nights of operation, the Boathouse allows people to bring their own liquor, which is common in most restaurants that don't have liquor licenses. So virtually any day or night that the Boathouse was open, liquor was being served. The only question is whether it's being served on behalf of the owner of the premises or whether the people are bringing their own. Now, we do know that there's been some issues with the operation of the Catch in the past, one of which is the teen nights. Under the proposed expansion of this license, you won't have any teen nights anymore. The proposal by Mr. Burris is to change the Boathouse and the Catch into full-time restaurants catering to residents of the borough and also visitors. And his intention is to have really an upscale restaurant and operation similar to what they have in the Black Whale, but even going a step further, and Mr. Burris can explain that when he does his discussion of his plans for this premises. We have the architect here, we have our planner here. I'll defer to Mr. Vasello to call them up at the appropriate time, but I know there's been some objectors who have raised the concern about, quote, the vacation of Dock Road. It was never the intention of the applicant to have Dock Road vacated. The original intention was simply to have a bridge going from the Catch to the Boathouse. to allow people to walk over from one premises to the other. Not required by the law, but it would just seem to be a nice way to A, connect the two buildings, and B, to transport liquor from one location to the other without having to go out in the public right-of-way. Dock Road is simply that, a public right-of-way. The adjoining property owners under law own to the center line of the street. And therefore, we have the continuity of ownership between the two premises under our proposed structuring. And I think we can answer any questions that the residents have. In regard to what's in the best interest of the town, the borough, simply what the representation is of how the new operation will in fact be operated and maintained. You're not going to have the teen nights that have apparently caused some problems in the past. You're going to have an extended season for operation. They want to expand the weddings at the boathouse and make it into a place that people want to go to up through November and start in March, which again will help extend the season. By doing that, you're going to bring more people into the borough and hopefully help revitalize the business for other businesses in the borough. But at this time, I would allow Mr. Vassallo to come up and answer any questions you may have in regard to the actual application itself. And I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Do you want me to explain the application more, or are you all familiar enough with it?
Why don't you please just give a brief explanation? Thank you, Mr. Priscilla.
We filed this application on behalf of the Catch. The Catch, well, there's a contract between the Catch and Mr. Burris' group to purchase the Catch, the property, the license, but it's contingent upon the approval of this because Mr. Burris is also acquiring the boathouse. And so we filed this application. The Catch filed that there's an assignment of the contract for the purposes of filing it. But we're asking it to be effective in November when the properties will close, at which point Mr. Burris will acquire the boathouse and will also acquire the Catch so that there's the necessary possessory interest and the control of the properties. So the Catch has filed it now. It's the corporation filing it to expand, and it's just a place-to-place transfer to expand the license to include the adjoining property on the other side of the street, because the properties go to the midline of the street, although there's a public user right of way, and it's proposed that even though it will be technically licensed, the whole properties will be licensed, there will be a representation, and I think you could want a restriction in the application that there can be no consumption of alcohol on the public user. We wouldn't want it there either, but technically there could be alcohol on it, so that's why you put the restriction on it. There can be no consumption on there. And it's as simple as that. It's just so that when the contracts, the purchases take place, it'll all be under one entity. Now it's going to be operated as one entity, the same corporation, whether it be the Catch or the purchaser of the Catch, will operate it as one entity, one set of books, one set of employees. They may call the boathouse room and the Catch room, or the Catch room, or whatever they choose to call it in the revamping of it. But it will be absolutely one place of business, not two places of business under the one license, but one place of business. This happens to be both sides of Dock Road. And any questions about it, or?
I think at this point.
Okay.
Well, I think we have some renderings showing what the proposed development would look like connecting the two. I'd ask the architect to come up and talk for a minute. Architect first. Just to give you pictures, because one of the things we want to make clear is there's going to be a substantial investment improving the facilities. We obviously like the idea of canceling the two buildings by a bridge, but obviously that would have to be approved by yourself.
You may or may not be familiar with the...
Can you just state your name for the record?
Jeffrey Wells, architect with the firm Coastal Design Group.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
this, Carol Merrill, but the zoning board heard this application. That's what these are from. These are the actual documents that were submitted as evidence. And it's
Would you speak into the microphone?
Yes. The plans that you see here simply show from an aerial view the boathouse, dock road, and the catch. What is delineated in a patina color is the addition. That's what was approved. That's an extension over the top of the existing parking lot. It's essentially a covered area for 1/3 and 2/3 open deck, so that it has now a sunset view, a bay view, with dining and drinking above the parking level. This plan shows no bridge, this plan shows no connection, but this plan does show a delineation that was not approved and is not being presented tonight, which is the pedestrian way inside Dock Road, the whole Maritime Village concept. So this is really sort of a morph of both plans, but that pretty much tells you what we're looking at.
Just let me let people over here do that first. Remember they showing the, no?
This is very close. That's the whole Dock Road.
Oh, okay. No, that's not.
And there would be no consumption in that reddish courtyard area?
That is correct.
And that would be an acceptable condition?
The only thing, yes, we need the entire area licensed so that we can transport liquor from one location to the other across the street. But no consumption allowed in that area at all. We don't want it, and I'm sure you don't want it.
You're not asking for that area blocked off at this point, are you?
No.
No, that's what I thought. It's confusing because when you look at it, you...
Well, originally, as I said, the application before the planning board or land use board was to have a bridge connecting the two. I think some people felt that the governing body did not want that bridge. Maybe the governing body would prefer to vacate. We don't need to have the street vacated. I know I've seen, I think, 3 letters objecting to this proposed expansion, and I think all 3 of them mentioned they were opposed to vacating Dock Road. We're not asking for it.
Just one point of clarification. The planning board only ruled on the expansion of the deck on the catch.
Correct.
And never made any judgment with regard to the bridge. You presented the information, but only for informational purposes only, but the planning board has given no judgment, has not really been presented to the planning board
I
for
apologize.
evaluation.
Right, the bridge would be preferred, but no, I think he's trying to correct that. The planning board didn't say no. They
It was
didn't say
never
yes.
really presented to the
Correct.
planning board for any review or approval.
It'll still be, that dock road will still be an open road
Correct.
to vehicular traffic.
That is correct.
Yes.
It looks like an awful lot of stuff in there, so I don't know how you're gonna do that.
No, the planting you see with all the plantings and pergola, they're not there. That's not being presented tonight. So the closing of Dock Road and turning it into a pedestrian area is not
And
happening.
it's not part of this
That
application.
is
So it's not
Correct.
one-
No, that was one possible plan, but I think they were just showing the aerial, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so not correct me if I'm wrong, just to show the layout and an overhead view.
Owning to the center line.
Can you speak with like a half?
Is that common with all properties?
Owning to
That
the
each
center line?
property you own to the center line of the street?
It's hard to say that it's common to all properties. In some situations, that is the case, and in some that it is not.
Yeah, just, is,
Yeah, so
We have title work for this property that we've looked at. I won't editorialize on the title work, but we did receive title work on it.
Just for the record, I'd say the general law of the state of New Jersey is you generally own to the center line of the street. There are certain exceptions, but in general, 98% of the time you own to the center line of the street.
Anything else up here at this point? Anything?
We'll answer any questions from the governing body, or I think we might have some people from the audience that want to speak, and we'll respond to that as well.
Okay, if the applicant's done with their initial presentation, we'll move on to any objectors. Just for the record, we did receive 4 written objections, which the applicant has received and the governing body has received.
So at this point in time, I guess we can call up,
Yes.
whoever would like to come up and speak, please state your name and address. Go ahead, go.
Colleen Lambert, 115 8th Street. As you know, I was at that meeting. I just want to get something perfectly clear in my mind, so I hopefully the attorneys can help me out here. The Dock Road proposal is completely off the table,
The road will not be vacated.
no matter what happens
Correct.
at any point in time. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I
No,
wasn't
no,
sure.
not a problem, and any time you want to vacate a street, the governing body would have to adopt an ordinance and give notice to the public, but we're not requesting that at all.
At all. Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
You're welcome.
As you know, I was at the November 20th meeting, and I had concerns then. And that meeting was very interesting in several respects. Excuse me, Mr. Burris talked about his attorneys being very confident that no matter what happened, that all would go through. And that kind of disturbed me a little bit, because I'd like to think that we have a say in it as a government, as a taxpayers and everything else. I know the attorney just said, the gentleman just said that there is, case that this could happen. So be it, but I kind of like to think that we have a little more input than just this is going to happen kind of deal. That kind of concerned me. I have nothing against the applicants. I never even met Mr. Burris before several months ago, and when Mr. Batista was mayor, he was very helpful and instrumental in getting our tennis court project going, and I was very appreciative of that. But honestly, whether it's this applicant, a future applicant, or my own mother, I don't think that we should be giving away liquor licenses. And whether it's a lateral transfer, which this is kind of leaning toward, or whether it's an out-and-out gift, to the best of my knowledge, the last couple liquor licenses in Beach Haven went for over $1 million. And I'm thinking, that's $1 million gift. And that's pretty nice. And how many other businesses in Beach Haven are being given $1 million gift? How many other little eateries or restaurants have the ability to get their hands on a liquor license? Pretty much nobody, because first of all, they're very expensive. Second of all, there's a ton of restrictions and regulations to getting one. But now, with this lateral transfer, there's an extra liquor license floating around this town. That's great for the applicants, because they'd have another $1 million license. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to the other restaurants. I don't think it's fair to any business. And as a taxpayer, based on my last tax bill going up, if we can afford to do that, wow. In fact, you can just take away all my taxes and assessments for the rest of my life if we have that much money to give away. And that's one of my big concerns too. The other thing is the precedent. Again, there is a precedent in play here, and I know in legal terms precedents are huge. And Mr. Burris was very open about the fact that he would like to purchase the Morrison's property. So if that does happen in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, are we going to be back here? Because now the liquor license can go across the road in the other direction. Why not? We did it one way, why not the other way? Same owners, same street almost, a little bit different, not much. And that also, I think, needs to be taken into consideration, that we are setting up the precedent. For that matter, should the Shell, the Ingleside, Tuckers, Buckaloos, should they be looking at adjacent properties? Again, precedent. Years ago, a friend of mine, her husband was on the police department, and it was back at the time when they were talking consolidation. I said to her at the time, should Beach Haven be looking to consolidate the police department? And she said, it could work, but one thing people don't take into consideration is that Beach Haven has more bars and restaurants per square mile than any other town on this island. And come closing time, our police force needs to be concentrated in those areas. If we're going to start doing this little lateral slide or whatever, do we need to up our police department personnel? I think we do. And what's that going to cost us as taxpayers? There's a lot of little ramifications that go with this. This is not just a, hey, go across the, works out for everybody. According to the ABC site, liquor licenses are based on population. So if I counted correctly, we have 7 bar, restaurant, liquor licenses in play right now in the town. So by doing this, we're actually making an 8th. So that suggests that our population went up 1/8. We all know it didn't. So it's kind of like, in my way of thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of like a little end run around that requirement also. And the last thing I want to say is that I do commend the applicants for trying to take the restaurant and making it something nice, and I have no problem with a liquor license going in there. My only thought is that there is a liquor license for that property already. It's coming from the Black Whale, and that's the one that should be used. We should not be creating an 8th, essentially, liquor license, which is what we're doing. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you. Could I just, I just want to, the law does permit this, and I'm not saying that the council is judges one way or the other. What the case law says is that it's very fact sensitive depending on the circumstances of any particular case. So the legal standard is whether the governing body's decision is arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable, and that would go to, if someone appeals it on either way, that would go to the director of the state ABC and would be referred to the Office of Administrative Law for a hearing. In terms of creating another license, I just want to be clear, this doesn't create another license that could be sold separately. So the two establishments would always be tied together. It could never be severed and sold separately. So in that sense, it doesn't create another $1 million license, but it does expand it into a second facility.
Okay, thank you.
You want us to respond?
It might be easier to do it that way rather than hear all the objectors. That way it keeps it in order.
Well, you covered one of the points I was going to make. It does not create a new liquor license. It doesn't change the use of any property. The Boathouse is currently used as a restaurant. As I indicated before, it was approved for 22 special permits for one-day license for weddings that were taken there. It is the intention of Mr. Burris, and he can come up and state this later if necessary, to expand the wedding business there. And to also make the restaurant a little bit more upscale in certain areas, portions of the restaurant. But it's already used for eating, it's already used for drinking because people bring their own bottle or you have a special license. Nothing in that nature is going to change. What's going to change is the entire area, meaning the two restaurants, will be utilized more in conformity with what I think would be the borough's desire, that no teen nights, simply upscale dining for residents and visitors to the borough, expanding the wedding and other functions at the restaurant for utilization of families or when they get together for a wedding or when they get together, maybe we'll have a reunion from some group of families that live in this area. But it'll give them the opportunity to do that without having to worry about running to the closest liquor store to buy the liquor to bring there and what happens if that store is not available at the time. What I'm trying to say is really for the convenience of the people of the town and the visitors to the town. And I grew up in Seaside Heights, very similar to Beach Haven. We're a little bit, we probably have more liquor licenses and bars than you do. The governing body is starting to realize the importance of the summer visitors to the well-being, economic well-being of the town. It's an economic driver. And I think the best example to point that out was what happened with Sandy. All the shore towns got hurt very much by Sandy because it impacted the visitors. The more amenities you offer to people to come to Beach Haven, the better off the town will be in the sense that you'll have more people coming in and spending their money for not only these two establishments, but for local businesses in town.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this? Please come forward, Chief.
My name is Gene Farrar, live 224 Pearl Street, Beach Haven, New Jersey. I think Colleen pretty much said what had to be said about this. And I would just like to echo some of the things that, no matter what the law says about this, no matter how you slice and dice it, you're trying to run two gin mills with one liquor license so that you can take the other liquor license and use it somewhere else. And that's what it's all about. And it's like she said, if you do that, you devalue every other liquor license in this town. And if we are going to do something like that, then why don't we just do like they do in the little coal towns up in Pennsylvania, where every house on every corner has a little bar room. The old miner retires and he takes his front room and he puts a little bar in it with 6 stools and a keg of beer and a couple of bottles of booze, and everybody's happy. and he sits there and drinks with his cronies. So, I mean, if you can give him this guy $1 million liquor license, why can't you give us all one? You know, and as far as bringing people here longer in the season, I mean, that is such a bunch of guff. Beach Haven has never had anybody here in the off-season, ever. Not ever, since the beginning of time, except the duck hunters. And the only way you're going to get more people in this town is if you get the county to put the unemployment office down here in the old Beach Haven Bank. And then you'll get some people here. Might even get a bank back here. The only thing is, they're going to have to drive, but in 10 years, you're not going to drive down Bay Avenue on high water. Look at it today. You couldn't even drive down the street and see nothing but a northeaster. It's no big deal, nothing at all. And there's no way that you can stop this. You can put a 100-foot sand dune out in the front of there, but the water's coming from that side. So people aren't going to be driving their Bentleys down here through the salt water to get to this place to get drunk and then drive home again. They're just not going to do it. And you're not going to have people here. We have no families here. We don't have the people here to support. There's no other businesses open anyway, so it's not going to do anything at all for anybody except the applicant. And that's it. Thank you.
Any questions?
With all due respect to Mr. Farrow, I think we have to look at the history of liquor licenses in New Jersey. Originally in 1933, when Prohibition was repealed and the statutes were adopted, to obtain a liquor license, all you had to be was qualified and have a place to use the license. And then in the 1940s, some people got the idea, well, if we limit the number of liquor licenses that can be issued, we can put a value on these and we can get rich on it. And that's exactly what happened. So the licenses that existed at the time were grandfathered. And the only way new licenses can be issued is when the population exceeds what it was in 1947 and then in 1962 when it was changed again. If it exceeds that, then another license can be issued. And that's permanent resident voters. It's based on voting population or actual population determined by census. And that's not going to happen in Beach Haven because a lot of your residents, the seashore towns, a lot of the residents are not residents of those towns. They live elsewhere. So licenses became very valuable, but the people that got it. And then in 1981, the legislature got the idea, well, if you issue a new license, you can put it out to bid. That'll get some money for the towns. But that's not going to happen in Beach Haven. So what's happened in New Jersey is that a lot of places that would have licenses would attract restaurants. We don't have as many restaurants in New Jersey as you have elsewhere. You don't have the ability to go into a restaurant and buy a drink. So we have a lot of BYOB. Well, to control that, they only allow bringing beer and wine, and they put restrictions on that, which I won't go into the constitutionality of that, but that was a compromise to not allowing it at all. Again, those that have licenses don't want any expansion of this. So the only way, and it's been interpreted, and the law allows it, the way to get around the law, because it was never changed, you have the restrictions on licenses. So if somebody wants to come in and open a beautiful restaurant, unless they can buy a license, they can't do it. And the only ones really that have been able to afford a lot of these licenses, and if you look at it, and they've gone up to well over $1 million in some places. It's generally the big chains where they carry them as an asset, whereas a smaller person, they can't do that. They've got to come up with the actual money. And so what we have here, it's not a situation of creating a new license, it's trying to take what's here and expand it to a place that's unlicensed to make it one business. And you saw the drawings and the improvements it'll have, and to make it something that's going to attract people. You know, it's not a complete comparison, but you're probably familiar with Baltimore, the Inner Harbor there. Well, Maryland's situation with licenses is different. It's what New Jersey once was. If you're qualified for a license, you can get it. But they've connected with a walkway, the two places that they have here in the center of the harbor. And that's essentially what we would have here. The two of them connected, although there's a street through it, and where there'd be no service, but it's still connected. It's one licensed entity, and that's all we're trying to do is just expand that, taking the existing license, it's not creating a new one, and to allow the expansion of a business. Could others do that if they have adjacent properties? Yes, and if it's going to be run as one business, we're not taking, and again, we've got to emphasize here that it's not creating, licensing the boathouse and licensing the catch. It's going to be whatever the one business is, the boathouse, catch, or whatever it's called, as one entity. If they were torn down and they built up a bit, and let's talk about if it was bridged or was built with the building extending over the street, which certainly could be done, you just have one building, one place of business. Well, that's not really practical here to tear everything down and start from scratch. So we're going to emphasize again that it's because of the way New Jersey law has evolved for the profit of people, not for the public good, that we have this situation. So we're just trying to expand it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to come forward and speak? Yes.
I'm talking here. Ann Smith, 2nd Street, Beach Haven. Another issue is parking. I haven't heard anybody bring up parking. And down by the public dock, there is a lot of parking. But with this large of an establishment, I think it's going to take up a lot of room. It's going to take away from people that might just want to go and crab or fish. And then it'll become a safety issue with so much traffic coming and going. But you don't want it just to be purely for the restaurant. Plus, I think the overflow could go to Center Street. We already have businesses on Center Street. So the parking, the flooding, that has to be considered. What's going to happen down there when it gets really crowded in the effect of the summer. And how about safety? If there's a fire, I mean, do the police and the firemen, are they comfortable with the situation? And it will take away the police to monitor what's going on at night, because we all know the bars let out, there's a lot of room. And as a taxpayer, I'd like to have those issues addressed. Parking, think about the parking, think about the safety, and our tax dollars going to cover late at night activity there.
Okay,
Thank you very much for hearing.
Mr. Gilmore, you want to respond to that?
Certainly, in response, you currently have 2 existing structures there. There's a fire, there's a fire. You have that obligation to have your fire company respond at this point in time. In regard to the police coverage, what we're proposing in the end, I think will reduce the number of police calls to the establishment. Right now you have a situation where you have 2 operating restaurants. One has a liquor license, one doesn't. They're both very busy during the summer. Having the ability for people to have the convenience of ordering a scotch on the rocks instead of having to bring their bottle of wine or their can of beer, I think is a benefit to those patrons that want to enjoy a fine meal, fine food, good spirits. I have Mr. Barris here who will really explain how they intend to, if I see him. Where'd he go? Ah, where's he hiding? Bill, come on up here. So I want you to talk, I think you need to hear from the individual level.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Burris can come up and speak.
Well, I think it's important to hear from him, his vision for the utilization of the boathouse.
Can he address a couple things that the previous speaker spoke about, and that raised a question in my mind. Is there any intent to increase the capacity of either place? And what are the plans for changes in the catch, entertainment, live entertainment, hours of operation, that kind of?
The catch has a licensed capacity, April 1,246.
Could you speak into the microphone a little louder, please?
Sure, I just don't know the capacity of the catch. Is it 1246, Mike? The catch has a capacity of 1,246 people. I can't imagine that we're going to need to expand that. It sounds like a lot of people.
Get a little louder.
Trying to stay
Yeah,
relaxed.
but, I'm getting deaf and old.
That's okay. The boathouse operates a bring-your-own business. Like council said, it's been licensed for one-day liquor licenses. Interesting too, the liquor license that is being allowed to use for those one day is not even a Beach Haven license. It's a license, I think, from Ship Bottom or someplace else on the island. But people want to be on the water, and the boathouse is not open for lunch. We think with our program, we're going to have some success on the water. People are going to want to come there by boat. We're making provisions with Blackwell Dock and Holly's Dock next to that to facilitate more boat slips being available. We've talked to Mark Davies about grading some boat slips at his island so that we can have a little shuttle going back and forth and maybe even transfer people from one spot to another. But we expect the whole waterfront to become a major hub of activity. About 8 years ago, we finished the Maritime Museum, and the concept was the Maritime Museum was going to be on the edge of this maritime district. And if you look back at history, that wharf was a very active place. Now there's a lot of cars that park in there, but how active is it really at the end of the day? The boathouse has a waiting list every night. The Catch has a waiting list every night. The Black Whale has a waiting list every night. I don't know if you're going to answer your question, increase any capacities, but we may make it more of a business opportunity all day long. Maybe we'll consider doing breakfast on the bay, something that's not been done, but clearly we have the ability to do that. There's a lot of people in that area already. But we're not going to run a team night thing. That's just not part of our program. I think everybody knows the type of program that we run. We've been here for 11 years now. Most of the people in this room frequent our restaurant. I think we've done a pretty good job with what we've done. I think my partners with the other restaurants that they run equally do a good job. They've had nights at the new Causeway this year where they've done 900 to 1,000 dinners on a Friday and Saturday night. That's pretty significant, but I guess you didn't know that the boathouse does almost that on Friday and Saturday night. So there's some business that goes on. We'd like to make it maybe a little better, maybe a little more efficient. Of course, we'd like to make some money at the same time, but we think we can make it a destination where people are going to want to be. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to take a stab at it.
But are you planning on raising the capacity at the boathouse? Do you have any plans or considerations for adding a second story?
Actually, I think our plans are to reduce the capacity of the boathouse. Boathouse currently is licensed for, I believe it's 320 people. We're going to build a bar. The boathouse does not have a bar. The bar is going to take up a lot of space. I think we're reducing the seating capacity of the boathouse by about 100 seats, and we're increasing the bar by about 40. So overall, I expect that we'll reduce the size of the boathouse by about 50 people. Understand, I like the concept of the bridge. And it just, we had a boat parade. And when you saw from the boats and you looked in at the line of people, having that as a promenade connecting the two, I thought it would be a great view shed and a great opportunity for us to have something pretty neat, just different. And And that's where the idea actually came from, because we looked and we had people up on the deck of the boathouse, we had people up on the deck of the catch, and you just imagine what it could be if I could join the two. The catch has an elevator, so if we had, a promenade on the upstairs of the boathouse, that would, kind of be like a viewing standpoint with the bay right there. Sunsets are a huge thing. People, I'd like to get a program going where people, it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and the sun's going to be setting pretty soon. Let's run on down to the wharf and have a drink with the sunset. So there's a lot of possibilities here. I think we've talked about it for 15 years that I know of, and we just haven't done anything. This is really an opportunity to get something moving that I think makes sense. It's the waterfront of Beach Haven. It should be kind of the center of all the activity. I think we can do that. But I'm not going to expand the capacity of the boathouse. The catch is capacity of 1,200 people. Between the two together, it's 1,500. Where am I going to put 1,500 people? I don't think we need to expand capacities.
Didn't they just expand the capacity?
What?
Did they just expand the capacity of the land use board?
No, I did
No,
not.
that was the catch, that was the land use.
No, I didn't expand
Extended
the
the deck
capacity.
some.
I expanded the size of the deck. I put more of a sun deck, more of an observation deck. Mike has a program that's, daiquiris at sunset. It seems to be a popular program. But, we thought we could expand that program, have people have a little bit more room to stand around instead of being crowded in the spot. He gets a lot of people in there for that program.
It's my understanding that if we did grant you the extension of this liquor license, we could put restrictions on that liquor license. For example, conditions. For example, I don't know if this is true or not, we could say, well, you can serve liquor in the boathouse, but you cannot have a bar. Or you can serve liquor until 11 o'clock in the boathouse, but you have to close the liquor situation, you have to close it down by 11. That's my understanding, that if we did grant this, we could put those types of constrictions on this if the council wanted to do this. Am I correct?
I think your concerns go to what the previous speaker spoke about, quality of life concerns, which may be closing earlier and avoiding a rush of people into the street at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., something like that. Can you address some of those concerns that the public seems to have?
Yeah, I think we can avoid the rush by, my partner and I have talked about this, we've got a captive audience at 2 a.m. Why let them all leave? Let's just open up the kitchen and cook breakfast. It's not funny, we can do it. Why not? Why do you want to send a lot of people out all at one time? We got the customers are there already, let's just cook breakfast. Chicken and egg, everybody runs to the chicken and the egg. What happens if we start cooking breakfast? We already got it. Shut the bar off, cook breakfast. I don't know. Sounds like an interesting discussion, right? I appreciate that happens, but you already have the lion's share of this capacity at the catch closing at whatever time they're allowed to close. There's no restrictions that I'm aware of on the catch at all.
No, there isn't. But the question being is, if we did extend this liquor license to the establishment across the street, I believe we're entitled to put restrictions on that. I don't know if that would be, again, under approval every year when the person comes up for approval of the liquor license.
The catch does have special conditions.
Yes.
Going back to 2009, there was an application and it was approved by the state, actually. There are special conditions on the catch's license.
I was just going to confirm the mayor is correct that you would approve the expansion with conditions. You're absolutely permitted within your authority. I would hope that any conditions you place wouldn't inhibit the type of facility that Mr. Burris is hoping to utilize here. In other words, it's going to be, we're going to do a little bit of upscale at the boathouse.
Probably at the catch.
Oh, okay, all right, reverse it.
Yeah, we were thinking about creating a different type of a program at the catch, something more upscale. Great deck, great people area, and maybe a higher priced dinner menu, but we've still got a lot of figuring to do. The boathouse runs a very similar menu to the black whale. So we think we'll expand our fresh fish pursuit. And we're right now buying fish from all over the world and shipping it in every couple of days. You know, we can do, the more restaurants we have, the more of that we can do. And our clientele really seems to enjoy that. So. As far as your restrictions, I guess it's okay if we agree to them. If we don't agree to them, then I don't know what happens.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Right, but let's not forget, she'll have some public, I don't know if there's any more public.
Exactly.
George says I'm done, am I done?
Are you done?
Any other questions?
For now, we may have more questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public would like to get up and speak? Yes, please.
Sharon Osborne, 24.
You can turn that down.
That's easier. Pearl Street, Chatham. Don't have a lot to add because I think the other speakers really nailed it very well. But I do have a question. At the last, wasn't the hearing, but council meeting, when Mr. Wells, Mr. Burris presented all these plans, I would like a clarification on this maritime village thing. Is this still in the works? I realize that's not the issue tonight, but because of what Annie mentioned about parking and others mentioned about police and fire access and general congestion, I think it's pertinent to this question.
At the present time, the only thing we're seeking, as you know, is the expansion of the license. Obviously, the governing body is going to have a lot to say, and the planning board, or land use board are going to have a lot to say about the future development. Certainly, we think that's something that the town should consider in the future, but we're not requesting that at this time at all, and there's no plans at the present time unless there seem to be a favorable comments from the governing body that you want to move in that direction, and certainly we would entertain that, but no plan at the present time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Gotta get your hand up fast.
Jill Farrow, Pearl Street. I have a question about, since these are kind of two different properties, what would happen if somewhere down the line, maybe business took a downturn and somebody decided to sell off the boathouse and keep the catch? What would happen with this liquor license?
There'd only be one liquor license, and it would be at the catch. They don't have any right to sell off half a license. I think there's some misconception by some people that by expanding the license to 2 buildings, there'll be 2 licenses. That is incorrect. There's only 1 license, and only 1 license would ever be
And it would
sold.
always go at the catch?
They would, or unless it was transferred to another location, which would prompt an application for the transfer. Place to place.
So if he kept the boathouse and sold the catch?
Might stay at the boathouse.
Yeah, I'd say the boathouse.
Yeah, I imagine you can do one or the other.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think the only other thing, I'm sorry, that we should clarify is if you had that situation, say you agree to expand the license that covers both premises, 5 years from now they sell the catch. The license is gone. It only goes, it stays with the boathouse. In other words, you can't sell one off and they can still operate under that.
Oh, gotcha. Great, that makes sense.
Mr. Gilmore, question. In this case, the way you explain the streets, they become contiguous properties.
Yes, they are.
And I think Colleen brought up, suppose it was going to be over at Morrison's. I mean, can the liquor license be extended to non-contiguous properties?
No, they cannot. Let me say that a public way is not considered an intervening ownership that bars the transfer. In other words, this case is going back to 1938 where a highway separated 2 establishments that were owned by the same entity, and the ABC and the courts held that that was permissible because there was public access only between the 2. If there was a third party, private individual that owned a strip of land, you can't cross that. You can't expand the license.
Yes, but if Mr. Burris bought Morrison's and there's a road between, but nobody owns anything in between, certainly there's.
would have to come back here
He would have to
before
come
you
back and do
and
this.
ask for permission.
Exactly. He'd have to ask.
He would ask for
But he
permission,
could.
not beg for forgiveness.
He could ask for it, and it would be acceptable if the town, perhaps acceptable if the town approved it.
Correct.
And the precedent would already be in place.
Well, you are not
Case
bound,
is now.
what you decide here, you are not bound to do in the future.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
Each application stands on its own merits.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Bob Smith, Second Street, Beach Haven. All right, so my question is that precedent issue. Once you do set that precedent, then you said, oh, it's an individual merit. However, once you set that precedent, Mr. Burris certainly has that right to ask for, and then he will use the precedent in his favor. So, and then, once you had precedent, does that mean that the Seashell and the Ingleside could go in cahoots and operate under one liquor license because the precedent's been sent, and then send that liquor license, one of those, to another establishment? And, man, you know, you're just opening a can of worms. And the issue of closing, that everybody comes out of the catch at 2 a.m., so it wouldn't be any different. Well, at the present time, the boathouse closes around 9. So there isn't that. So if you are opening another bar across the street up until 2 a.m., or as Mrs. Burris now wants to do, keep it open all night till breakfast, I think you'll still have a lot more people coming out of there. There's going to be more people. You've already expanded the deck, whether you expand the capacity or not. That place with 1,200 people is awfully crowded. You've already expanded the deck out to at least double its size, so you're going to have twice as many people up there. You're not, all that little amount of people that are on the deck now aren't going to all of a sudden spread out, and there's going to be room to move. There's going to be twice as many people there.
Thank you.
I think your legal counsel for the borough can confirm what I'm about to tell you, that granting this request for the expansion of liquor license.
Could you
sets
speak
no
up,
precedent.
please?
The expansion of the approval of this request to expand the liquor license has no precedence in regard to a future application. Every application is on its merits, and you have the right to say yes or no every single time, no matter who the applicant is. Mr. Burris bought 2 other properties from now and tried to connect the 2 with a liquor license. You have the absolute right to say no. Now, I would think that you would view these things in context, and you are not harming the position of the borough at all, and please correct me if I'm wrong, counsel. If you approve this tonight, doesn't mean that you're somehow obligated to approve an application in the future. And in regard to the people on the deck, remember, that deck cannot hold the capacity of the catch, people downstairs. So they all can't go up on that deck. I really don't think you're going to increase the number of patrons that come there. You're going to increase the number of patrons that move from the first floor to the deck so they can see the sunset. I agree with that, but I would think we'd want that. Why wouldn't we want to give people a better opportunity to view one of the beauties of living on the water, seeing the sunset against the water?
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Bob Schlock, 122 2nd Street. I think the issue of precedence keeps coming up, and I realize that the council has a right here, every applicant on its own merit, but I'd like to know what this applicant has that makes him distinct from any other applicant that may come before you. Everybody has a right to a fair and equitable process, and so if somebody else in similar circumstances, they certainly can make the same arguments for the expansion that Mr. Burris is making. Why the council could then reject them, and if they approve this particular process, I think you have to be fair to everyone that comes before you. You can't treat Mr. Burris differently than anybody else that comes before this council. The other issue, you mentioned we might hear from the chief or the law enforcement community, and I'd be very interested to hear what they have to say with regard to this process in terms of its impact on the department, because I cannot imagine that, and I'm not for shutting down businesses or anything else, but I can't imagine an operation open all night or even till 2 in the morning is not going to impact the department. You know, if they're open till 4 that just means you need officers sitting out there until people leave at breakfast time in the morning. So I'd be real curious to hear what they have to say.
Thank you.
I'll just respond briefly to that so the governing body knows. What the law says about these applications is that they're very fact sensitive and it's the totality of the circumstances. So you can't treat everyone the same. You're not allowed to treat everyone the same because no two situations are the same. No two locations are going to be the same. The application's not going to be at the same time. So it really is a fact-based, individualized analysis you're going to do for each application. So the argument of precedence really should not factor into your decision.
Thank you. Anybody else from the, I think Mike wanted to speak. I don't think we have a police officer here.
Michael Peeler, 208 North Bay Avenue. It's nice to be back here. And it's true what they say about BJ. The women are strong, the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. Would you repeat again that this is not duplicating a license? It's just one license. Would you please
Sure.
repeat that?
The application is not requesting, and if granted, would not create an additional liquor license in town. All it does is expand the Catch's current license.
Right. People need to understand that. Now what we have here, here's the town, winter. This is our residents, and not all of them. In the summer, 75, 100,000 people. Your responsibility is not only to the residents, but it's also the fact that we are a destination community that people are thinking of today, because of the weather outside. And we owe it to them to continue to reinvent ourselves. And what Bill is doing is going to up the game down there and creating a maritime situation. People are coming to this town to enjoy themselves and to have the liquor license at both places. All this is going to do is offer full service for fine dining and beverage, okay? And as far as Gene and the gin mill, I've spent a lot of years at gin mills. You don't take your wife to gin mills, you don't take your children to gin mills, you don't take your grandmother to gin mills, or your mom. These are gin mills.
Yes, I do. Always did, always have.
Well, I don't know what kind of
grew up in it.
Let's have the conversation this way.
Stop this right now.
As a matter of fact, the Catch.
It's a comment, I'm replying to him, calling these gin mills.
Yeah, but you're.
Comments should be
Yes.
directed to
Okay.
To the council.
Okay. They're fine dining establishments that offer alcohol. They're not gin mills. Okay? This is going to, I've never been to the Catch or the Boathouse. When I was open, we're 10 to 10, that was it for me. And after the end of the season, they're closed. The only time I've been to the Black Whale is on invitation from Bill. So what I see in these places from when I was open are people coming and telling me of their experience and how they like this and they like that and so forth. It's enriching the community for everybody. Okay, our residents, our businesses. I don't know if are there any people here that are in business.
Well, you're talking to us, so.
Okay, well, are there? There's not. There are some. Okay, well, that's good, because improving these is going to help all of us, you know, and I think you need to think about that, because you're charged with helping the town develop and improve and grow, and you're passing the baton. So, think about it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Anybody else? Yes. Jim.
Yeah, it is. You're an asshole.
Hey. Yeah, no, let's try to keep this amiable. No, you direct your comments to us and.
Before I start the remarks that I have,
State your name and address.
oh, Jim Vogel, Maritime Museum, 528 Dock Road. Before I get into what I really want to say, there's been so much said about precedent. And of course, we know, have heard from Mr. Fasella and Mr. Gilmore that this is a non-issue. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the Moreland and 308 Center, it's already been done. Maybe it was just an alley between the places, but it has been done, which is neither here nor there. So this is not something new. What I want to say is, as you drive down Bay Avenue now and look, every time you go by there, there's more and more empty storefronts. It's starting to look like Detroit. It's terrible. Our taxes are rising, our population and business district are declining, and anything we can do to help this town is something that's truly got to be considered. I look around at those speaking out against this, and with all due respect, most of them don't live anywhere near the area that they're objecting to. I live across the street from this thing, and I see a win-win situation here. Teen night is a nightmare, not only because I live there, but I'm also a first aider, and I see the police presence. A well-operated adult bar restaurant would be a major improvement, and it would require less police presence than what you have now. When I look out my window at night and hear all this, there are normally a half dozen police officers there. And it's to control the unruly kids, and that's 3 nights a week. As far as people coming out of the bar, if this takes place, you're moving the existing black whale to the boathouse, and you're not increasing the number of people coming out all at once. That's not true. Of course, anything that improves this area is a plus for me. The museum, bring more people to town. I like Mr. Burris's dream, call it, of a maritime district, a vibrant maritime district. They've done, look at Cape May where they did that and closed off areas. Now, I'm not suggesting we close off areas, but I am suggesting that a vibrant maritime district would be a draw for people here. To say that we don't get any more people is untrue. In the couple years that the Beach Haven Future and at some of these restaurants have gotten together, the shoulder seasons have expanded. Are we ever going to be year-round and a great draw? No. But we can pick up more people. I know some of you don't like Bill Burris personally, but look at the Bay Club and the Town Club. They're attractive developments and enhance the borough. Also bear in mind that he made major compromises to get these projects done. So we know the man is willing to be reasonable. Again, he seems to be the only real major developer that we have. And he's willing to go above and beyond to beautify and improve the borough as a whole. He'll undertake projects elsewhere, not just on his projects. He's no knight in shining armor, but he's what we got. And it'd be foolish not to work for him if it's going to improve, lead to the betterment of Beach Haven. Nobody said this, but along with Mr. Burris, you've got the Magaziner and Nugent families. Look at what they've done with the Black Whale. The place is vibrant. It's full. If that's not enough for you, take a ride across the bridge someday in late September and October. Anytime, late afternoon, whatever, those places are full. They attract people because they are well run, good food, and they're a boon to this town. We're lucky to have them. One thing we need to bear in mind also is that if the town rejects this application, if it goes to the state and is approved, it's approved with no conditions at all. At the town level, you can sit down and discuss this with Mr. Burris, make some agreements and compromises. But if it goes past your jurisdiction and goes to the state, he has a carte blanche. We need to remember and embrace our past, but let's not take it to the point that we endanger our future. Declining population, striking business community, and rapidly rising debt don't bode well. Let's support any and all well-thought-out projects that have the potential to bring prosperity to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. You made comment that the Black Whale was going to shut down. Can you expound on that?
To my knowledge, the Black Whale.
No.
No.
If they close that down, they could just take the license over there.
So that's.
Doesn't change.
That's
No.
not
That was a
gonna
mistake.
happen.
So, yeah, potentially have a few more people.
Okay, just want to clarify.
But adults, not.
Lizette, would you like to speak? Or
Yeah, I want Kona, 600 North Delaware Avenue. I have no connection at all to any of the parties that are bringing this application before you. I've been in Beach Haven for 33 years and have raised a family down here during the summer, and now I'm a full-time resident. It takes more than 10 weeks for a business to stay afloat on this island. We've worked hard to create some events in this town to bring more people here to the town of Beach Haven. And one of the things I think about when people talk about, oh, it only benefits the businesses, or how am I as a resident going to benefit from events that you bring to town? One of the things that makes Beach Haven great, in my opinion, is the walkability of the town, heading to a local restaurant or a local store where you run into people that you know, and the close-knit nature of the community. And I think to myself that Beach Haven wouldn't be the town that it is today if all of those businesses disappeared. If we were left with just a handful of businesses, it would look like a completely different place than the town that we all love. And I think that people are right when they say this bayfront area is an underutilized space. I mean, it is gorgeous over there. And to make a place where families can go or somebody can go out on date night, and I just envision the area with the drawings that I've seen being much nicer in the future, and I think that all of those things are pluses. I do like the Town Club and the Bay Club. I think that they look nice, and they've been a great addition to our town, and I would just like to see Beach Haven improve wherever possible. I think you guys have done a fantastic job weighing the pros and cons, and the discussion has been really great to hear all the different sides of this issue. And for that, I just wanted to get up and say that I support this project. Okay?
thank you. All right, I can't see whose hand that, okay. Deb? I'm short, so I could just see a hand go. See the top of your head.
You know what it's like to be short, Nancy. Deb Whitcraft, 528 Dock Road, Beach Haven, directly across from the Catch and the Boathouse. There are no two people in this room with a greater vested interest in this application than us. We live there. We, like Jim pointed out, we walk out on our deck, which fits about 3 people, and we're staring at the Catch and the Boathouse. The elimination of teen night that these folks are willing to do from the Catch property, which would be expanded to the Boathouse, reduces problems not just in the neighborhood of Dock Road and Center Street, West Avenue and all that, but these kids leaving teen night go to places like Chicken or the Egg, and then you're subjected to all the noise. We're subjected to going to these establishments after teen night is over with, and we have to pick up these kids off the street with GHB, alcohol intoxication, you name it. We have to deal with it. So Colleen brought out a good point. Safety and security is certainly a very big issue. And our police department, as Jim pointed out, does have a half dozen at least SLEOs, special law enforcement officers, when there's teen night. They have to, just to keep them on the sidewalk and off Dock Road while they're waiting to go inside. The amount of public urination, defecation, you name it, is just so incredible. And we see it. We live right in the middle of it. And as far as creating a greater need for police protection, which of course results in higher taxes and all that, you wouldn't have that with the Magaziners, with Eric Melanie, the Nugents, the Burris family operating a business akin to the way that the Black Whale restaurant operates. We're not going to have the first aid calls at the Boathouse and the Catch that we currently have and will continue to have as long as teen night is provided for. Someone else brought up parking, and parking is always an issue in resort communities. But when I had the boat business, the Black Belt boat business, Bob Yates and I, 25 years in that business, we had a total capacity of passengers of over 600 people. And there were some days when we ran casino trips on a vessel that had a licensed capacity of 308 passengers twice. So as far as parking problems and a lot of people down there between Dock Road and Center Street, that was when it was at its peak. You will never have that type of congestion of people and cars today that you had when we were in business. So I don't think the parking issue kicks in at all with regard to the expansion of this license. Another thing, just on tonight's agenda, you had an ordinance on first reading where you reduced the tent permits. And I know, I have married a couple thousand couples. Some people who were in the audience, I've done their weddings. The wedding business is a very big business in Beach Haven. I understand the council had a very difficult problem in residential areas. I get that. But the wedding business is very, very big. Businesses like Lavish Salon, Rommel's Liquor Store, myself as an officiant, the wedding fees are paid to help support the museum's bills. I don't get paid, the museum gets paid. Without that income, the museum would probably not be able to stay open all year round as it does. So the wedding business is huge. I understand that you've cut it down to 4 tents in the residential area, and that certainly doesn't impact the marine commercial area where the Catch and the Boathouse are located, but that to me is a very positive thing, because now you're taking all of those crowds of people, you're allowing the vendors, the photographers, the wedding officiants, the DJs, the caterers like David Lloyd, you're allowing all these people to continue working these weddings at a more appropriate site where the Boathouse and the Catch are. And you're taking away the noise, the bands and all that out of the residential district like 101 Center Street that has posed a problem for the municipality. So I think it's great that the wedding business will be expanded by the expansion of their license from the Catch to the Boathouse. Someone said that the difference between the Boathouse is it closes at 9. That's not true. We live there. The Boathouse is open 10, 11, 12, depending on the activity going on there, like weddings and all that, might be 1 or 2 in the morning. It doesn't close at 9. You have to come down the Dock Road sometime and see what it's really like down there. As Jim pointed out, the Magaziners, the Nugents, even Bill, operate in the Black Whale, the Old Causeway, Mud City, Ship Bottom Shellfish. These are all businesses that are so successful, so well run. And to have these same people come and manage a business like the Catch, that, no disrespect to Mike, has been a problem establishment for the town for many, many years, including the 10 years I was in office. It's been a problem place. And we're on duty tonight. We don't have any calls there, thank God, because Mike's closed. But I would ask very much that the council give due consideration to approving this application. I think it would be a win-win for all concerned, especially those of us who live right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak out there? You can come up again, but this is the last time, just make it short. Okay. We want to be sure everybody has a chance.
I just wanted to ask, I'd like to ask Mr. Burris a question. Last summer, when I was driving down,
Just address the question here, please,
I was
and then
driving
we'll,
down Second Street,
we'll present that.
and I happened to notice that there was a duplex being built on the Blackwell Bar and Restaurants parking lot. And I just wondered what they utilized for a parking lot this summer while they were open.
Does that have anything?
Can I answer that, please?
Hold on a second, hold on a second. If that has nothing to do with this application, which on its face, I don't think it does, I'd like to avoid getting into separate issues that would distract us from the current issue before.
For my information. Oh, and as Ms. Woodcraft said, you know, she did have a lot of business down there, but most of it came in buses. And those buses utilized the borough parking lot and the Taylor Avenue parking lot when they were down there. So you didn't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars being parked down there all at one time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If there's nobody else that wants to speak, I'm going to close the floor to public comments. This is the last chance. All right, so at this point, I'm closing the floor to public comments. Okay, so we'll let the applicant make closing remarks, and then we have all this.
As you know, again, Mr. Pacelli is going to add to my comments, but on behalf of Mr. Barris, I think we do have special circumstances. You have two buildings that are currently used as restaurants. In both buildings, liquor is consumed, served in one, served in the other only when they have special permits, but people bring their own beer or wine and consume liquor. So there's no major change by the expansion of this license, other than providing a convenience to the people that go to the Catch, to allow them to order drinks and not have to worry about only drinking beer or wine. And I'm not a drinker. I drink soda. That's my consumption is soda and milk. That's why I have strong bones, and I still drink a lot of milk, even though I'm 66 years old. But having said that, a lot of people, including my wife, enjoy having a drink once in a while with their meal. And this only allows that to be able to be done at the Catch. You'll also, as a result of approving the expansion, will allow the infusion of funds to improve both facilities. Right now, and I have been told that current ownership of the Catch has no intention of infusing any more money into that business. It will continue to operate the way it has in the past and for many years to come. The opportunity to change how that place is operated and to put an infusion of funds to improve the facility comes by authorizing this transfer because of the end result of the ownership of the projects. Again, Mayor, you had raised before, can you put conditions on? You absolutely can. But one of the conditions we would ask that you put on, that the expansion of the liquor license not occur until November, because November is when the closings would take place. And I think that was in Mr. Pacelli's letter.
It's not a condition on it, it's
Right.
the effective date of it being November.
So, with that, I'll allow Mr. Pacelli to say anything. No?
Just want to reiterate that we've asked that the effective date be November because everything has to take place. If nothing done here tonight, hopefully it will be a favorable decision, would affect this season. The renewal of the application, the liquor license would go forward just as if this hadn't taken place. But we can then go forward with the plans to purchase, and Mr. Burrs can go forward with the plans, and my client can go forward with the plans to sell it to Mr. Burrs, knowing that it will all take place in November. The division of ABC will require that there be an effective date on any approval. That's why we make it effective November, Mike and Bill, November 15th, 30th? 30th. You make it the 30th, and then the closings will all be coordinated to make sure they take place. At that point, if something fell through in it, and there isn't the acquisition of the boathouse by the catch, it's a nullity, because there has to be the possession and control of the property in order for the liquor to expend there. So it would become a nullity if that happened, but I don't think it will happen if you approve it. I think it will go forward. Do you have any other questions about the application itself?
I do not.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, the hearing is closed. If the council has any comments, you can make them now. My recommendation would be that we were presented with a lot of information tonight, that we take it under advisement and present and consider a formal resolution on the application at your next meeting.
Which would be a
is
week from Wednesday.
A week from Wednesday. What's the date? That's the 17th?
17th.
And February 17th, and the time for that, Sharon?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. So any comments or questions from the council?
Are there any?
Not on these applications.
She's coming.
Okay. So at this point, this more or less ends our meeting unless there's any special,
Public comment. Regular.
regular public comment, okay. Is there any, I apologize, is there any public comment that doesn't relate to this issue that would be related to something else?
This is the portion of the meeting where we always have public comment.
That's right.
Mayor, I'm just going to say thank you very much to the mayor and commissioners for allowing us to do the presentation tonight, and thank you for your concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is any update on beach replenishment?
Yes, if you have a public comment relating to beach replenishment, or to garbage, or to flooding, anything that doesn't relate to the catch that you want to come up and talk about.
Yeah, I think that's what he wanted. Rich, I don't know if that would come from Rich.
Are you going to give
Update
that
on beach replenishment?
I can talk a little bit about that. I just did talk to the Christopher, anyway, I had a long chat with him today, and everything's still on board for beach replenishment starting in the mid-March. They will start up at 12th Street at the north end of Beach Haven and work their way south. They actually are going to start pumping some sand in a couple blocks into the townships, so there's continuity up there with their project. They are sending, the middle of March, the plan is to bring the two smaller barges in, not the Liberty, which is the big barge. The Liberty can pump further out, and we have these cable crossings, so we do need the Liberty. But we're going to get the Liberty a little bit later, but they're going to get started with the two smaller barges mid-March. They guarantee me that replenishment in Beach Haven will be done by the end of May. They do plan on, at the moment, they are planning on taking sand out of the inlet. That sand will probably go more on the Holgate beaches Holgate will come last. And the problem with starting to pump the inlets now or in March is there is a migration of winter flounder. And in order to make everybody happy and the various agencies of the Department of Environmental Protection, they would like the Great Lakes not to start pumping that sand until after the winter migration, which is mid-June. So there will be, this is a good thing, because we have lost a lot of business in Beach Haven, boat business, large boat business. Our tuna marlin, our marlin tournament wasn't as big last year. A lot of people with the large yachts can't get through the inlet, or they feel unsafe with their investments going through there. So this is a good thing. It sounds like everything's on schedule. There's no changes with that at this point. Is there any other questions relating to that?
I want to ask you a question, Nancy. We've constantly talking about the beach replenishment. One of the tie-ups that I heard at the last meeting that I went with them is these crossovers. So we have to, are they scheduled the same time as this beach replenishment? Because if you have these dunes and the people don't have the crossovers.
I think we're in pretty good shape with the crossovers at this point. George and I went out and we looked at every beach ending, and what the Army Corps is actually going to fund our crossovers, which they weren't, but our Public Works Department is going to be removing the snow fence. So the time and the money it would have cost for Great Lakes to remove the snow fence is going to go into the walkways. And I went out and I have a list, and I need to circulate it to you guys. I did this the day I left to go to Utah. But some of the walkways are very, very simple. There's hardly anything. Others are longer. But it really, I do not think it's going to be a problem. As long as everything goes as planned, I think people will be able to get onto the beach easily from each street end. The one thing we do have to do, though, is we have an ordinance that has been drafted regarding crossovers for people that have condos or that live in the middle of the block. And we do have to get that ordinance passed, so we do need to think about that. Okay. Any other public comments about anything unrelated to liquor licenses, please? Do I have anybody that wants to come up? No, so therefore I'm closing the ability to come up for public comment. That's done. So now we have the final remarks by council, if anybody would like to say something. Jim?
Well, just thank everybody for being here, and your input is very much appreciated. And the second thing was that I wanted to say that Bill Traum, our emergency operations director, was operated on today for a very severe spinal problem, and it turned out to be a lot worse than they had thought about it. So he's in intensive care right now, and I'll just keep everybody keeping in your thoughts and prayers. So.
Thank you, Jim. I did not know that. Still. Chuck?
I mentioned this the other day at our meeting, but I wanted to congratulate Municipal Clerk Sherry Mason on her appointment as Secretary to the Municipal Clerks Association of New Jersey.
Don?
Earlier in the meeting was mentioned that our emergency management team did a really great job during the storm. They did the best. We did have one power outage, and one of the things we will try to look into is the infrastructure to find out why the transformer blew, and we could maybe prevent that from happening again. So we'll look into accounting getting in touch with the electrical supplier of those transformers and see if we have any other weaknesses in our infrastructure in town that could maybe prevent that from happening again in the future. Special thank you to Mary Pence, who went over to the first aid squad and did some cooking over there.
I want to thank you, Mr. Gilmore, Mr. Cassetto, Mr. Burris, Mr. Wells for coming tonight, and everybody in the audience. I think the input was very good for us to hear. And it's good to see people show up and take an interest, regardless of what side you're on. Thank you.
And all I want to say is thank you again to everybody for coming, and we will seriously consider everything. And I want to thank Mr. White for taking over the town during the last storm. Well, I was in Utah watching movies, so the town was in great hands, and thank you all for coming.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.